Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be making a tutorial on how to cut and sew this beautiful dress shirt. So if this is something that interests you, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So this is the fabric that we are going to be using for this tutorial. So first and foremost, I'm going to be cutting the front panel. So that means I'm going to be folding my fabric into two. So I'll fold my fabric into two, then I'll place it on the table. So after folding my fabric into two, this is what I have. So I'll go ahead and mark out the starting point. So from that starting point, I'm going to measure the length I'm going for. So the length I want to go for is 45 inches, and I'm going to add 2 inches extra as seam allowance. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So after cutting out the length that I want to use, this is what we have. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead to, on the open part of the fabric, I'm going to go ahead to mark 2.5 inches. So I will mark 2.5 inches from the beginning of the length of that fabric. I will mark it straight down to the end of the fabric. So once I mark the 2.5 inches, I'll go ahead and use a straight line to join it together. So guys, this is what we have. So any measurements we are taking now will be after that 2.5 inches that we marked. So the 2.5 inches that we marked is our button allowance. So all the measurements we'll be taking now will be after the 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark out my shoulder measurements, which is 8.5. Then I'll go down by 1 inch, which is my shoulder slope. Then I'll go ahead and measure my neck width. The neck width I'm going for is 3.5 inches. So after marking my neck width, I'll connect my neck width to the shoulder slope like so. Then I'll go ahead and insert my vertical body measurements, my chest line, my bust point, my waistline, and my hip line. So on the chest line, I'm going to go ahead to insert my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust circumference divided by 4 is 10.75. Remember, we said we are measuring, all our measurements is after that button allowance, so that is what I just did. So I'm going to mark the shoulder measurement. I'm going to connect it to the armhole in a straight line like this. So I'm going to look for the midpoint of that armhole line that I just drew now. Then I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch at that point. Then I'm going to connect it together to meet the bust circumference divided by 4 that I marked out the other time to form my armhole. So if you are, this is just how you are going to be, this is just like you will do it if you are cutting a basic bodice pattern. So if you are confused, you can go ahead and watch my video on this channel where I showed you guys how to draft out a basic bodice pattern. So here I'm going to insert I'm going to insert 2 inches allowance to my bust circumference measurement, 1 inch for ease and 1 inch for 1 inch for seam allowance. So on the waist circumference, on the waistline, I'm going to insert my waist circumference measurement divided by 4 and add 2 inches allowance again, 1 inch for ease, 1 inch for seam. So I'll do the same on my hip line. So after doing that, I'm just going to connect those points together. So after that, I will go ahead to work on the neckline. So remember, the neck width we went for the other time was 3.5 inches. So I'm going to go for 3.5 inches neck depth as well. If you don't want your neck depth to be as wide as this, you can just go for 2 inches or 2.5 inches, depending on your preference and your body measurements. So after that, I'm going to add 1/2 inch to the shoulder slope, which I'm going to use to join the front panel to the back panel. So once I do that, I will go ahead and just cut out this front panel. So it is this front panel that we are going to be using to cut out the back panel. So this is what we have after cutting it out. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to notch the button allowance. So once I notch the button allowance, I'm just going to go ahead and fold in the button allowance, because when we are cutting out the back panel, we are not going to be adding any allowance, any button or zipper allowance. So we'll fold in the button allowance so that we are going to use it to cut out the back panel. So after folding the button allowance, this is what I have, and I'll set it aside. So I folded another piece of fabric which I'm going to use to cut the back panel. So the folded part is where we are going to be using as the center back, because there will be no allowances for this back panel. So that folded part is where I will be placing my my front panel on, like the side that the button allowance started on the front panel. That is where I'll be placing it on. So now I'm going to be folding in 2 inches from the back part at the beginning of the back panel. I'm just trying to like trim off the rough edges here. So I'm going to be folding in 2 inches. Why am I folding in 2 inches? Remember that when you are wearing shirt, like the shoulder is always falling towards the front, and that is the effect we want to achieve now. So that is why I'm folding in 2 inches. If you don't want yours to fall in front up to 2 inches, you can use like 1 inch, 1.5 inches, whatever you prefer, but I want to use 2 inches. So I'm just going to like pin down these 2 inches now. So once I pin down the 2 inches, I will bring my front panel. So remember I said that we are folding this in by 2 inches for my front panel. That means the 2 inches we are folding inward for the back panel, we are going to cut it off from the front panel. I don't know whether you get what I'm trying to say. Like the 2 inches we are folding inward from for the shoulder of the back panel, we are going to be cutting it off from the shoulder of the front panel. So that 2 inches we are folding inward is what will replace the 2 inches we'll be cutting off from the shoulder of the front panel. So guys, after cutting off the 2 inches from the front panel, so I'm just going to like open up the 2 inches that we folded in for the back panel. Then I'm just going to like mark out my shoulder slope. So for my shoulder slope for the back panel at the neck point, so I'm going to mark the neck width of the 3.5 inches that we mark for the front panel, and from there I'm just going to like slant the line down to the end of. Then I'll go ahead to cut it out. So once I cut it out, I'm just going to like fold the 2 inches inward again. So once I'm folding the 2 inches, I will make sure that I add 1/2 inch allowance to it, which I'm going to use to join it to the front panel. I remember that while cutting out the front panel, we already added 1/2 inch allowance to the front panel, so there's no need to add any 1/2 inch allowance to it. But while folding the back panel, now make sure that you are covering the 1/2 inch allowance, like the 1/2 inch allowance we are adding to the 2 inches of the back panel. You are using the 1/2 inch to cover the 1/2 inch allowance for the front panel. I don't know whether you get what I said. If you don't get what I said, just look at what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to align it now. So once I align it, I'm going to pin it down, and I will align, and I'm going to pin both front and back panel on each other like so. So it's time to like cut it out, but before I cut out, I will make sure that I cross check the shoulder measurements. Why am I cross checking the shoulder measurement? So that the shoulder of the front panel will not be wider than the shoulder of the back panel, or the shoulder of the back panel will be wider than the shoulder of the front panel. They must align. So that's why I'm trying to cross check the shoulder. So as you can see, the shoulders are aligning. So I'm just going to go ahead now to cut out this. So this is what we have after cutting it out. So the next thing we are going to do now is to cut out the neckline. So for the neckline, we are maintaining the neck width for the back panel as well, which is 3.5 inches. And for the neck depth of the back panel, we are going to be going down by about 1 inch. We don't want the back panel to be deep, but if you don't if you like, you might not even go down at all by anything. You might just maintain the parts that you folded. So the parts that you folded on the back panel, where the crease of the folding is, will be the starting point of your neckline. But me, I'm going down by 1 inch. So when you want to cut out this neckline, you have to be careful. So I'm just going to notch the neck width, then I'll open it up and go ahead to cut the neckline for the front panel first. So okay, I think I cut the neckline for the back panel first. So you open it up, you cut the neckline for the back panel first. Then after cutting it, the neckline of back panel, you are going to lift up that 2 inches that we folded in and use it to cut the neckline of the front panel. Did you get what I just said now? Let me re-explain. So you know the folded parts of the back panel, you folded it in. So we are just going to, when you want to cut it, you will cut the back panel first, then you will lift the front panel. You will lift the other for the folded parts before you cut the front panel, so you will not make a mistake. So now I'm just going to like mark out the pocket allowance that we added the other time. So I'll go down by 1 inch from my waistline, and I'll come up 1 inch from my hip line to measure my pocket allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to unpin the fabric, and I'll go ahead to sew down my button allowance. So to sew the button allowance, I'm going to first of all fold in a little part of my fabric like so. So once I fold in that small part, then I'll fold it again and make sure that the folding stops on the notch of where the button allowance is starting. Do you get? Don't fold it into the normal body measurement. You fold it and stop at where the button allowance is starting. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So guys, after folding in the button allowance, this is what we have. So I will go ahead now to work on the back panel. So I'm going to set this aside for now. So I'll bring the back panel. Remember that when you are wearing shirts, that there's always a part at the back that is like that is folded in. So this is what I want to like form now. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using to form that part. So I'll fold the fabric into two and place it on the table. Then I'll place my back panel on it, and I'll make sure that I align the center parts of the fabric and every other part. So the length you want the back facing to be depends on your fabric and what you want. Some people even let the length reach like above below the armhole, but my fabric is not much, so I'm just going to manage the one I have. So I will open up my back panel, making sure that the right side is facing up. Then I will face the wrong side of the facing on the right side of the fabric. Then I will sew the neckline round, then I will fold in the down part now. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So guys, after working on the back panel, this is what I have. As you can see, this is how it's looking. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place the front panel on the back panel. So when you are placing the front panel on the back panel, make sure that you pick the corresponding side, because you don't want to make mistakes. So the right side must be facing each other. So I'm going to just pin the shoulder together. So for this side, so I'll pick the second side as well, place it on it, and just pin the shoulder together. So once I pin the shoulders together, I'll go ahead and stitch it down on my sewing machine. So guys, after stitching down, this is what I have. So this is the shoulder of both sides. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and attach my sleeve. So before I attach my sleeve, I'm going to make sure that I find my shoulder line. Remember that we brought the back panel towards the front by 2 inches. That means the back panel is longer than the front panel. So if you want to get our shoulder line, we are going to align the armhole like so. So if you don't align the armhole, you'll be measuring, I don't know what you will be measuring, but you not get the right measurements. But once you align the armhole like so, make sure the armhole of the front panel and the back panel are together, then you'll be able to get the shoulder line, the new shoulder line. So with your new shoulder line, your shoulder line where you join the front and the back panel together must fall towards the front, so it must be at the front. So if you have been following what we've been making since we started this video, so this is the joining of the front and the back panel which falls to the front. So on this new shoulder line, I've already notched it. That is where I'm going to place the center, like the center part of my sleeve. I've gone ahead to cut my sleeve. I have a video on this channel on how to cut a basic sleeve. So I'm just going to pin my sleeve to this fabric, and I'm going to go ahead now to stitch it down together. I'll stitch it together on the other side as well. So guys, after attaching my sleeve, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and join the sides of this fabric. So to join the sides, I'm going to place the front and the back panel together on one side. Then I'll make sure that I align the armhole, the sleeve and everything. Then I'm going to go ahead and start pinning them down together. So once I start pinning them together, the moment I get to where the pocket allowance is, I'm going to like skip that part. So this is where the pocket allowance is, and this right here is my pocket. So I've already cut out this pocket. This is the pocket. So I'm just going to fix the pocket to the pocket allowance while sewing it. Then after fixing the pocket, then I will go ahead and sew and the down part again. So for the other side, I'll pin it together as well. Then I'll take it to my machine and go ahead and stitch down. Remember, when you get to where the beginning of your pocket allowance, you skip and start sewing again at the down part. So after stitching the sides together, I'm going to like fix my pockets to the pocket allowance. So after fixing my pocket, I'll go ahead to the down part, and I'm going to fold in my I'm going to hem the gown like so. So guys, I've gone ahead to sew the side and I've fixed the pocket. So the next thing I will do now is to attach the polo, fix the buttonholes and fix button to it. So I have a video on this channel on how to like cut and sew a shirt polo, and I have another video on how to fix buttonholes to a shirt using a normal machine. So you can all watch all that because all the links are in the description box below. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.